This episode's guest is Jake Heilbrunn. Jake and I had an amazing chat today. I am still buzzing truly from our conversation. Today was just two humans connecting. Is how I can summarize it. But Jake has an incredible background. At a young age, he decided that college wasn't for him and he wanted to have a bit of a walkabout and go off the beaten path. And so that's exactly what he did. And he wrote a book about it as well called Off the Beaten Path. And he's only 25 today, and he has done TED Talks. He's launched businesses. He's helped other people walk onto the TED Talk stage and done many amazing things that influence the masses in a positive way. And so that was my initial reason for wanting to have Jake on. And we connected on something at a really, really deep level, which is amazing. And we got to dive deep on it, both in our struggle with and battle with Lyme disease. But we were both able to connect on what it has brought to our lives. And, you know, look beyond the illness or the challenges and instead flip it on what, you know, it's truly brought to us, and it's been a gift, and how it's enabled us to serve others. So this is an amazing episode where Jake and I are able to connect on that. And we talk about many different components of life and how we can support one another. And that's not just the two of us, but the world and the masses. And that's the special piece about this human is he has daily struggles and challenges, but he constantly keeps his head out of the clouds and able to look above and beyond and see the light. And he truly is a shining light for the world. So I'm excited for everybody to listen to this episode. It's by far one of my favorite episodes. And I look forward to really keeping in touch with Jake, because I know there's going to be a future chat as well, because he's got an amazing future ahead of him. So check this episode out. You truly won't regret it. It's there's a lot of magic in this one. But Jake Heilbrunn, I have a ton of respect for, and dive in. Thank you for joining us, everyone, on another episode of the Conscious Creator Podcast. I'm super, super excited at our guest today, and I haven't told Jake Heilbrunn yet who is our guest, but I'm going to be real with you, Jake. You are the guest I've been most excited for on this podcast so far. And this is episode 7, just to give you some context. So I truly, truly appreciate you lending the time today. And I'm really excited to dive in with you.
Thank you. That's quite the honor.
Absolutely. Now, on this podcast, before we dive in, because I know everybody has, you know, full lives and many things going on, but I love to just ground us in 3 breaths together and really just have us arrive, and so that we can enjoy each other's company and dive in some great conversation. So for anybody that's listening, as long as you're not driving, please join us as well. We're just going to do 3 conscious breaths together, in and out, and then we'll get into it. So maybe close down our eyes and we'll just breathe in, out. Amazing. Thank you for joining me in that.
I don't think there's a better way to start a podcast than that.
Thank you. It's evolved. It hit me at about episode 4 when I was just kind of like, you know what, everybody who comes on we're midday and we're going through things. So it's good to just help us be present, right? And able to have the best chat we can. So appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I'll tell you how I came across you. All right, because that's what led us here, and I think we share a little bit more than you're aware of, and so a friend of mine actually tagged me in one of your posts on Facebook, and for me, I honestly was almost brought to tears reading that significant post, because I almost felt like I was reading my own story. And it was so powerful. And I had to just, and honestly, usually I get turned away from super long posts, but I wanted more, and that's why I had to reach out, is because I read, a piece of your battle with Lyme. And man, just listening to the words that you were putting on paper, I was like, that's exactly what I went through, and exactly the questions I had, and the frustrations and the challenges. And so that's what really brought me kind of into your world. And then, of course, I said, I got to check this guy out a little further. And I looked at, some of the things you've done, and I think you've accomplished a ton, and that's amazing. But again, above and beyond all of that, when I have people on this podcast, it's because I feel they're just overall amazing humans. And that's what, without us ever meeting in person or even exchanging a word, just so everybody else knows, I could tell, you're in that space of wanting better for yourself, and that for other humans in this world, and trying to share your message with the masses. And that is truly what attracted me to say, I have to reach out to Jake, and I really have to try to see if we can share some time together on an episode. So I just wanted to give you a little background on how I found you.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing, and it's cool. And I believe the post I wrote was it was in January. It was about kind of my journey, and
it was.
I had just gotten COVID too, and just kind of sharing like the feelings of almost just despair and hopelessness. Yeah, it's so interesting because I write those posts for me, like it's a catharsis to simply put my experience into words. I've kind of always been like that. And it's always really special when I can hear that reflected back, that my words resonate, and that you could see yourself. And it sounds like you've overcome that challenge with Lyme.
I haven't. So I've certainly come a long way. That's for sure. I have, for me, as for anybody with Lyme, everybody is different. I've learned, right? I'm sure you've done your research now and talked to people, and me, it was my joints. I did have some fatigue and some brain fog when I was in the thick of it. Lost a ton of weight and was very, very frail, and everything that touched me hurt. But now I'm at a stage today, I went through the antibiotics. I'll give you a quick synopsis of, went through the antibiotics. Then I would correct in between, do some gut work, and eventually, I was like, I need to continue to go deeper on this. Nothing worked. And so I went to the spiritual side. I did Cambo treatment, and that was what really, really unlocked for me. I had a vision of something unlocking, or just felt it rather, during my second of 3 days. And it was from that point forward, I knew that's where I needed to devote my time, was to diving deeper in the meditation and spiritual space. And yes, today I take definitely a lot of supplements and things, right? As I continue to do my research, as I'm sure it's never ending. But my biggest piece in my journey that I was able to discover during that time and working with a shaman is that this truly was delivered to me for a reason, and it has turned into my greatest gift. We would not be on this podcast if it wasn't for that. It's just really pushed me into a space that I'm passionate about. And today, yes, I still have pain in my back, my shoulders, my hands, my feet, but I'm very, very functional. And I'm so grateful for that, because as I'm sure you have, I've talked to so many people, and the buoy effect too, of back and forth. And so far I've been on a trajectory where I might take a little step back, but then I go forward again. And so I'm grateful every day. Every day.
It's inspiring to hear. I mean, as you said, it's often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or can feel like 5 steps backwards, 6 steps forward at times. But it's just so wild how bio-individual this journey is, and the core components that, come together to facilitate healing are going to look different for each of us. And I also would really echo what you said. I mean, I'm quite literally in the thick of it. I've been kind of going through a flare pretty intensely the past 2 months, pretty much since October. So it's been, I don't know, 9 months of kind of at a dip. I was at a place very functional, surfing every day, just had energy. I was even going to the gym, had so much capacity, which isn't the case now. But what you said of, and I'm not quite there yet, so it's inspiring to hear, like, the logical part of me knows that this is a gift, and I also subscribe to that belief where I'm doing a lot of work looking on different modalities outside of myself, and there's a part of me that knows deep down that I will not heal until I change something deep within. And I don't know if that belief is true or not, but it's what I believe, having done ozone therapy, ayahuasca, multiple combos, antibiotics, supplements, herbs, pills, tinctures, suppositories, all the things, somatic therapy, like all the things. And, plant medicine for me, 2 nights of back-to-back ayahuasca helped me more than anything in October of 2020, about a year after my symptoms kind of onset pretty much overnight. But it's interesting because I had no expectation going into that experience. I was kind of at a place where my back was against the wall. And I sat again in January, and I had a very different experience. But I was coming to it from a place of like need and almost expectation of like, this is going to heal me. And to what you said, it's like this messenger, to get a little bit from a potential woo-woo perspective, but like the higher self, like I've been really diving into some, you could call it shadow work, but I've had, insecurity, jealousy, anger, all these emotions. And I would always kind of categorize myself, oh, so I'm a nice, easygoing, flowing person. And that kind of identity, how I view myself, of bypassing these emotions that are part of the human experience, and noticing how I've really just not valued myself and not had boundaries, and seeing, the energetics. I don't know if you've read any of Louise Hay's work. Her book is You Can Heal Your Life. It's sold like 50 million copies, but she actually has this really cool list in the back of her book that can kind of give you the, so to speak, spiritual, almost diagnostic of what your health condition is, and parasites is giving your power away, which I found was interesting. And the time when I got, I don't even like to say sick, but just for ease of terms here, I had just turned 23. I thought I had kind of peaked in my life. I just moved onto an apartment on the beach. I was dating a girl I was falling pretty hard for. It's in the best physical shape of my life. I had started a company about 2 years earlier, helping people give TED Talks and get their message out to the world. Our company was doing really well. I was making the most money I'd made. And underneath it, I was so stressed out trying to piece together everything in this company. And I didn't have a lot of boundaries with my mentor, who became my business partner, essentially, as we built the company from zero. And I was so stressed out, I didn't know how to cope with it. And so looking back, I can see, and I'd launched a podcast of mine too. So I was doing all these things, which I loved. And there was this part of me that was like screaming out for help, almost saying like, Jake, like, how much more of this can you take? And my way to cope was to just put into exercise. Like I remember 2 or 3 days before I got sick, I went on a 6-mile run, saunaed, cold plunged, to just get that anxiety out of my body. And it's been such a challenging and humbling experience these past almost 3 years, because I'm still able to surf and do, some sort of exercise, but nothing close to the capacity I used to. And similar to what you were saying, I'm at the lowest weight I've been in my 20s. I'm 25 now. And the exercise for me is the ultimate tool, movement, to kind of move the energy through. But not being able to rely on that tool has been, it's like the universe is presenting this experience with me like, hey, sit with yourself. You can't run. And that has been extremely challenging.
No, that's massively powerful. That last piece. I mean, it's to find that message within, right, and to look, and that's all we can do in times like that is just observe. Of course, we want to kick, we want to scream, we want to punch, we want to run into the darkness, and a lot of people do, right? And that's the power that we do have is choice, right? And man, again, I resonate with so much of what you were just saying. Like for me, I couldn't imagine, first off, at 23. I remember I'll be 37 actually tomorrow, and at 23, I know what I was doing. Yeah, when I was living in Australia, surfing and doing a lot of the similar things you were saying, and probably falling hard for a different girl every day. And now I have a family and I have two little guys, and I got to a point where my biggest hit on the physical side was, it hurt me to pick up my kid and give him a hug. And I thought, if we're in public and we're ever to get attacked, which doesn't happen here or anything, but you just have that manly piece where there's no way I could protect my family. I'm way too frail. And so I resonate massively with those physical pieces. It was such a part of the journey that was challenging. And as you say, being able to work out and move that energy is huge. And I hit that too, where I was like, hey, you have to pick up this 10-pound weight, start there, this 8-pound weight, I think it was at first. And, it's very, very humbling.
It's so humbling.
Go ahead.
And I was going to say, it's, I can't even imagine what it's like to go through this with a family. And as you said, you're the provider and protector, because I've had my own feelings of masculinity challenged on so many different levels, not being able to feel the way I think a man should feel. And of course, that's like a very real primal protector that's built into us. So I have the utmost compassion for that.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring up another good point right there, right? Is how we feel about this and how we're able to or feel we can express it as men, or as a stereotypical man, right? And there's a lot of work that our society needs to do there too, and change in not just times like this, right? Why can't we cry? Why can't we express emotion? And we should, and that's important that we do. And I know you were chatting about the different waves of things you were experiencing, right? And it's important that you acknowledge every single one of them and process it, right, as you go through the journey. Otherwise, it's just creating eventually more illness.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you said that about crying, because before Lyme, I don't really remember the last time I'd cried. The last time I cried was this morning. My girlfriend, she's a healer and acupuncturist and doctor of Chinese medicine. And she's been a beautiful teacher for me of like supporting my crying. And what I've learned on this journey, it's not about strength, so to speak. It's a journey of resilience, where anyone walking a path of long-term dis-ease or, chronic illness, you're going to get broken down, and it's going to happen, and almost being with the breaking. And I find when I can actually access my emotions and cry or scream or whatever, the pain doesn't necessarily go away, but the suffering kind of dissolves those suffering of like holding on to those maybe lower emotions that are kind of trapped in my system. So it's been a way to kind of feel lighter in the midst of so much heaviness.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. I couldn't imagine, being completely alone on the journey and not having those tools that, we've learned, whether they're new or over the past few years, right? I think it's a massive piece of going through these challenges. And a big part of it is being able to surrender, amongst a fight is knowing when, I just have to let this go right now, let it run its course. And I have to surrender to it. I have to breathe and do what I can do. It's really, really important.
Yeah. The element of surrender or letting go has been hands down the hardest part for me, because I had a vision for my life and identity that I thought I was becoming. And it's helping to break that, which in a way is a beautiful thing. And, the part of me that's like, well, if I'm not better in X amount of time, then how am I going to provide for myself? All the different kind of stories that play. And I've been working, really trying to get to a place of like, how can I accept this condition from a place of, okay, if this is the rest of my life, and I truly don't believe, I truly know deep down this won't be forever for me, but can I get to that place of, even if it will be forever, and like genuinely be okay with that? That's where I'm trying to get to, and I have not gotten there yet. But there, from everything I read about healing and getting to that place of true gratitude and acceptance is where the healing happens. But how to get there, it seems, can be elusive. And, I can read I was commenting on, I love your bookshelf, and I've been doing so much reading on healing, like Gabor Mate, a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and yeah, getting to that place, it seems like it happens when, on one level, it's like you can do the things, and I have that kind of overachiever doer part of me that doesn't want to like settle down. And I think the yin aspect on the other side is like, can you just be with this and accept it and let go of the time and know there's a divine timing to this? And I'm I'm not quite there yet, but that's kind of my intention, is to really bring more of that yin accepting energy into my life and see, what that would look like, what that would feel like.
Totally. I think you nailed it with the feel and be. We're given the tools of the first one you said, right? As we go through school and everything we learn and is pushed upon us, it's like, yeah, do more, read more, study more. It's not the path, and if, I think I can hear it clearly that you feel the same way, right? And it's completely trying to unlearn those things that we've pushed on for however many years, and now stepping into this new space of being and of accepting and of opening up to energies and the universe and things that we can't see, that aren't tangible, but knowing they're the answer, right? And knowing that we're a rare breed that believes that too, because of course, when it comes to healing, especially, I don't know what your experience has been, but I had a 50-50 where, it's like, well, why aren't you doing the traditional things? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you, and it's at the end of the day, it's our journey, and our bodies can heal themselves. It will happen all in due time. But unfortunately, Western medicine gets tapped out, especially when it comes to what we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's such a wild journey. And as you said too, like with Western medicine, I also did antibiotics for about 7-8 months. Didn't really notice a shift, and just realized for me personally that doesn't feel right in my body for the path moving forward. But for some people, it is. And the deeper I've gone on my path and my healing journey, I really believe, like, from a core fundamental level, it's inside me. And what it's going to take to get to that shift, I don't know. And that's the grand mystery, and I don't know if I can cuss on here, but the frustration, just like the fucking frustration of like, what is the thing going to be? And at some point, I believe when I can access that point inside of me, then the ozone therapy or, the ayahuasca or even just the supplements start working, but it's not relying on that external thing to help me. And of course, external supplements or healing modalities can surely help and serve, and I will continue to do so. And there's like a knowingness within me, even though I want it so badly to be, I just take some pill or take something outside myself and I feel magically better. But there is an inner knowing within me that really strongly feels that until that shift happens, then everything will kind of, take care of itself from there. But that's a frustrating feeling because it's kind of taking, a big onus of the responsibility, and there's a blessing and a curse to that.
And there's so many question marks, right? You don't know when the end is. You don't know when enough is enough. You don't know when, period. You just don't know. And so absolutely, it's you keep going through the motions and try to surrender. And but of course, it's a dance. It truly is, of forward, backwards, and all over the place, and trying to learn in the midst of it, having the patience to do that.
Mm-hmm. It takes the utmost patience. It's the most, until walking this path, it's like it's almost impossible to imagine what this experience would be like. And the patience and the humility it takes is unprecedented. And I think one of the gifts, though, on the other side that I feel like what's a beautiful part of this is just the pure level of compassion I have for humanity and people. I've always been a pretty sensitive and empathetic person, but this has taken me to my knees, to a place where just to be with someone in their pain and suffering, to see that and to know it from an embodied experience of how dark it can get. And yeah, there's a beauty in that compassion, as painful as it all is.
There is 100%, and it gives you a very massive new perspective. I think compassion is the big keyword there, and it's just a new outlook on things. I mean, again, I wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for it on my end. It led me down a new path to want to help people see the brightness in life without having to go through something like this. Right. And because of course we have been given that without choice. Right. And thankfully we can still see the magic. But so many people take all of it for granted, just being able to stand without pain, being able to sleep without pain, being able to breathe unassisted. Right? These are simple things that we should be grateful for every fucking day.
Mm-hmm. It fosters a sense of gratitude that is special. Yeah.
Yep. So amazing. Well, know that, you're on the path. You're on the right path, and you definitely have another support system now.
Yeah, thank you. It's always, it is, I think one of the hardest things on the journey too, you feeling like you're alone, and whether that's someone else going through whatever their experience or going through a chronic illness, but to know there's other people in the trenches who are, showing up and doing the work and healing, or even if they're not, even if they're just in the real depths of it, but it is a shared experience that kind of drops some of the burden of the pain.
It is, and it's the feeling of alone just gets more too. It gets deeper when you start to look at these other modalities, right? Because it's taking you further away from who you used to be, or your ego self, right? Of who your friends knew, and on all that, who your family knew, who your partner knew, right? And as we explore these different things, we change.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. Oh, sorry. Continue there.
No, that's okay. It was pretty much the end. I was just saying it is, it's a very interesting journey, but there's layers to that loneliness.
Totally. And it cracks the identity. I remember the first time I did a coffee enema, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically you insert a tube up your ass and you shoot coffee up, and, it can detox your system and kind of catalyze glutathione and some other like helpful healing properties in the body through, I think it stimulates the liver, but it's really detoxifying. But if I ever thought I'd be, 2-3 times a week shoving 4 cups of coffee up my butt, I would have called someone crazy. But here we are, and I was there with you. Things like that,
I did it every day for probably 2-week periods, and then it was staggered a little bit. But yeah, the first time I had to do that, I remember I was like laying on the floor, you know what I mean, naked, just shoving a tube in my butt.
You're like, what does life come to?
Oh, and the first time I didn't know if I could do it myself. So, and I happened to be visiting my parents' place. So I was like, looked at my wife and I looked at my mom and I was like, one of you is helping me do
Who
this.
wants the honors here?
Yeah. And my wife quickly pointed to my mom, which is, it's fine. It's fair. It's fair. But then I looked at the setup and I was like, I can handle this one. And you know, it's, but yeah, that's one of many. I've done ozone therapy as well. So I was with you there. And it's a constant exploration, but yeah, we got to find the humor in the journey too when we can, right? And find those moments of all we can do is laugh at this point.
That's
right. And
I think so important.
Yeah. When you talk about coffee enemas, it doesn't take much to find the humor in that.
Exactly.
I love it. So what, I know you're in the thick of it right now, but what fires you up right now?
Good question.
What brings light?
Definitely the people in my life. So my family and my best friends and my girlfriend. I think quality time with the people I love definitely gives me energy. Sounds like we share a similar passion for surfing. I haven't been in the water for about a month as I got COVID and was kind of my system's still been recovering. But even just getting in the ocean for a swim or a dip, I'm a beach bum thick and through, and just I think ocean saltwater therapy is healing beyond words. I love honestly conversations like this. I actually have a podcast myself. It's been on hiatus for a while, but I love learning about people's stories, learning about their journey, how they overcame certain things. And I find conversations like this, bring me fuel and energy. I mean, I didn't sleep last night. I had a pretty rough morning, but I knew it's like, this is the type of thing that gives me energy in an interesting way, because it takes energy, but it's also energy giving.
Yes. Yeah. It's same there too. I that's the reason I started this, beyond, wanting to share a message. It was that I have the opportunity to chat with other amazing humans and learn their stories. Same. So I love that. And that's super important for you, I think, even if, just getting in the water. Again, I'm right there with you. I've been a water baby since I've lived on the ocean, but right now we live by a lake, and I have a couple businesses based around water sports, and they make me barely any money, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, getting to, maximize your life and time around the water it's a pretty sweet way to live.
Totally. And if it's the chance to just get in, as you say, and I think that's important, that if that's one thing that prioritizes and gets your energy to prioritize it, to even if you're walking in there every day, right? And having a moment where you close your eyes and just let the water wash over your body, right? That's going to serve you well. Yeah.
It's funny. I actually, when I first got sick, I stopped all activity. I mean, that was hands down the first 2, 3, 4 months were the worst. And I would say I'm kind of in like the second worst dip of my experience thus far, but I thought surfing would be too much. I mean, my main symptoms are insomnia, fatigue, and headaches. So doing some sort of exercise, like I would have what they call post-exertion malaise. It's essentially you crash. And I learned that the hard way as I started getting back into the water and surfing. The first time I got in, I was just sitting out there and I was like, wow, like this. I'm like, you know what? If I can just sit out here and surf, like everything's going to be okay. And then I ended up creating a 5-wave rule limit where, because pacing is such a part of this healing journey from what I've learned from other people and myself. But be like, okay, 5 waves, then I come in, but really changing again that perspective of I'm not going out there to catch every wave and, be out there for 4 hours, which, God willing, I can't wait till that day comes again, but to just genuinely smell the salt, smell the air, like take in the birds flying around, feel my surroundings, look at the cliff, like feel gratitude for the ocean, the elements. And I find that connection does something to me on like a soul level that is really hard to put into words. I know as a fellow surfer, you're probably picking up what I'm putting down. I actually created a documentary, a little short film called Waves of Healing, and just kind of shared the impact of surfing on my journey. And it was a cool way to connect to a lot of people, many who are going through Lyme, who could relate to the healing property of the ocean and surfing and what it does. And it led me down the rabbit hole, actually, of Stephen Kotler. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Kotler.
Yes, I've heard he was one of the first stories I heard of. Yes, but go ahead.
Yeah. So he had Lyme for 3 years, and he, credits surfing to helping heal him. And, how I actually got to interview him, and there's some, dynamic happens in the flow state, which is healing for the brain. And so he kind of, I think, likes to stay away from Lyme because and I understand it's a complex condition, but to know that on some level, certain states of consciousness and being are healing for the body, to me, like, that is fascinating. And, that's a big thing I'm working with, is doing Joe Dispenza's work, which essentially his whole paradigm is, letting go of the old model of reality of cause and effect, of waiting for something to happen, then I'll feel this way. But, choosing to get to that place of the unknown through meditation to kind of connect with what he calls the quantum field, where all possibilities exist, but to like feel as if it's already happened, to feel like I'm healthy and energized and whole. And that's been something I'm working on, but it's hard when I feel, I don't drink alcohol, but the feeling when I wake up is like I'm hungover, like I feel like I got hit by a train. So to try and get myself in my little meditation chair, I sit in front of a red light, I put in a Dispenza and my eye mask and like try, but it's, it's hard on many mornings because I'm not always able to generate the feelings of wholeness and health and vibrancy when it's been so long since feeling that way. But I've read about it. I've attended his week long. I've seen people heal, and like that's really the magic, is changing these, feelings in the body, which creates that feedback loop of the thoughts, which feed the body, which feed the thoughts. So it's trying to break that cycle. To me, seems to be the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for my own healing journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. He's very powerful. He was the one I dove into as well in the beginning stages. I was downstairs in my office, just shutting the lights off, and every night before bed I would do some of his morning ones too. And but I can imagine, if you start to distance yourself from that feeling for a certain period of time, it's, how do I harness that? I can barely remember it. But it's digging deep.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've heard, almost every interview with him under the sun. And there's just no simple, quick fix. I shouldn't say that. There's spontaneous healings that happen all the time, but it's like you said, it's getting that place deep within ourselves. And I think on some level it happens when we're ready. And that's the dance, as we were talking about before. It's, what do I have control over and what do I not? And man, I wish I knew the answer to that question more.
Yeah, that's it. What is that when I'm ready? What is that piece? And it's looking deep and saying, what is the universe waiting for me to release, or waiting to teach me, or where is that breaking point that I know I need to hit in order for that to happen? Mm-hmm. And not knowing when it's going to come.
Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate test.
Yeah. And to rewind on your journey a little bit, because, I think it's powerful. You acknowledge always kind of what you've done and where you have come from, because when I look at the things you've done in your past, I don't think you would have the outlook today that you do if it weren't for that. Right. And I think you have a really cool story and a really inspiring story with, I'll let you tell it. Scroll back to the beginning a little bit of kind of, let's say maybe when you first started to wake up a little bit, if that might not be the right term, but
yeah, well, I love that term. I would say my journey started when I was 17. I got to college, and I had kind of been bred in a well-to-do community here in Southern California, where it's, you go from high school to college to getting a job and saving the money, marrying and staying in the corporate job and getting the car and all the things. And 3 days after getting to college, I broke out in hives and rashes all over my body, which continued for the semester. And I felt like so uncomfortable literally walking from like a physical, like I literally and figuratively did not feel comfortable in my own skin. And the way I look back on it too is I grew up and my dad stopped working when I was 11. He kind of hit a wall working in a career that he hated. I mean, he was working hard to support our family, but he hated his job, was working crazy hours. And then he went through a pretty intense, season of depression. And I think growing up, seeing my father go through that experience, and he went to an Ivy League school, he like did all the right things. I kind of knew what my community and everyone's preaching of this path to success doesn't guarantee anything. In fact, I've seen the opposite happen. So I think in my subconscious that was always present, but when I got to school, I started having this kind of visceral physical reaction that led me towards kind of a crisis where I started questioning, why am I in school? Why am I even here? Like, what is the purpose of life? And I had hesitancy even wanting to go to college. I wanted to kind of take a gap year, but I didn't really know anyone who did that sort of thing. And I decided to just go to school. But yeah, in school, I remember this girl was killed. I didn't know her, but she was like a 20-year-old student killed in a car accident off campus. And I remember thinking, like, if that's me, am I going out like knowing I'm living a life that fulfills me and is true to myself? And the answer was no. And I had always had a dream of traveling. I'd never really traveled prior to that point in my life, and it just excited me. Like, I would sit in bed at night and be like imagining myself trekking in these foreign countries and volunteering. I'd feel like my adrenaline coursing and my heart bumping. Of course, I'm just in like a dorm room bed looking up at the ceiling, wishing something. But it was so scary for me because, my grandparents worked hard to give my parents the opportunities they had and me the opportunity. My older sister was an honor student in college, so I didn't know anyone who took, the road less traveled. But I got back to school for the second semester, and Ohio State, where I was attending, was in the national championship football game, and they won. And that was the moment for me when I was like, I got to leave here, because everyone was so happy and I was miserable. And I was like, I am in the wrong environment. I'm not living true to myself. So long story short, I leave school. 2 months later, I hopped on a one-way flight to Guatemala with a backpack, no cell phone. I spoke about 3 words of Spanish. And I spent the next 4 months on about $3,000 backpacking and volunteering throughout Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, meeting incredible people. I did bring a phone because I needed to disconnect from social media. I felt like I was just in this constant comparison of everyone else, and I felt a bit like a failure when I left. Like, I couldn't handle college. I felt like something was kind of wrong with me, and I was like, I need to just get away from this. And in those 4 months, my skin healed, and I really got in touch with myself. I learned about meditation. I lived on this kind of spiritual community ashram where there was breath work. It was for my first time exposed to breath work. And I really just had this big breakthrough of, wow, when we take a leap of faith towards the thing that excites us, towards the thing that gives us those nerves and goosebumps that scares us, like, that is the thing that our soul is like begging for us to do. And that whole journey just inspired me, and I came back and I spent the next year and a half working on and published a memoir called Off the Beaten Trail. It's kind of like a young dude version of Eat, Pray, Love meets Into the Wild, but with a happy ending. I don't eat any berries. And during that time, I started blogging, started making videos. I started speaking at high schools about mental health and finding your purpose. And that was kind of if I look back on my life and I say, what's the most important decision I've ever made? It was dropping out of college, because that was the domino that kind of ticked, that gave me the courage to follow my gut and really got me on this path, so to speak. And, that led, and we can dive into more, of course, but that led me to starting the company, the Idea Collective, which is now called The Thought Leader, which was basically a company helping people give TED Talks and get their message out through speaking. And that company, we built, me and actually, I don't know, I think he's from BC. His name's Taylor Conroy. And he was like a mentor of mine who I met through a pretty crazy synchronicity, which is just so funny. But I met him when he was going through bankruptcy, and he had done a lot of philanthropic work, doing fundraising for schools, houses in developing countries around the world. And I was inspired by him. I'd given a TED Talk. He'd given TED Talks. And so we built this company from nothing. And that took me all over the world and meeting new people and getting to get that first-on experience of, building a company from nothing. I mean, your shirt says conscious creator. And to me, like, consciously creating something is such a special and fulfilling experience. So it kind of, that first decision led me down to these things that I would have never imagined. And, I'd like to think that all those kind of initial challenges were preparing me for this challenge, which is preparing me for the next challenge. And trying to just, I'm 25 and I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself. Thought I'd be a certain way by this age or 30 and have all these things figured out. And it's, this cognitive dissonance of life has another plan for me. And as we've been talking about this whole podcast, can I surrender and let go of what I think I should be to just become who I am? And, because in this place I'm in, I'm not really able to work my identity, but of being like a kind of like a entrepreneur or wanting to be successful in all these things, it's not really, I don't want to say it's not possible because anything's possible, but it's made me really look at, like, do I get value from these things or do I get value from being who I am? So it's this constant dance of letting go of these layers that have built up. And I think that's one of the gifts, although maybe a gift I don't see and feel in this moment, but when I look back and I can get in my higher perspective, knowing that, oh, this is all happening in a beautiful, way that's
harmonious way. Yeah. And I'm sure it's hard to see that at times through the fog, of course. But I mean, a couple of things stuck out for me massively there. And the first one is quite simple, and it's, you're 25. I'll tell you what I was doing when I was 25, and I was not this elevated, and I was not, in the state of mind that you are. And so I think there's a beauty in that alone, that you can look at that. And, I don't like to define time either, but you're already so far ahead. Maybe it is a time to really just be still, and really just take that deep breath and own it in, and just be grateful and thankful for everything that's already come, and know that the next step will arrive right in due time. But it's all, the universe has a plan for us all. And that's, I think if you can continue to, something people have such a challenge with, right, is following their intuition, is having the courage to follow that little voice, because our ego shouts, our ego screams, stay comfortable, stay in bed, don't change, graduate college, then you can make the decision, right? Whereas the intuition in our hearts, they whisper. And if we have the clarity to really hear it, most still won't follow it, right? But I think with what you've created in your life and the path that you're on, that's there, and it's important. And if we can inspire others to do that, the world would be a more beautiful place, that's for sure, because people would step into their gifts more often.
Amen. When you were sharing that, and especially about the stillness, I just took a breath and I could feel like the resonance of truth in that. And stillness it's hard, at least for me, I should say, in this kind of go paradigm that I've certainly bought into. And I think what you also said rings so true is, intuition in the heart is a whisper. It's not a yell. It's not a scream. So fostering that place of stillness allows that whisper to be heard, and getting rid of a lot of the clutter, that is present. And, I certainly have a bad habit of checking, I took a long break from social media, but, when I'm in the moments of pain, can I have the courage and make that conscious choice to be with the pain, to listen to what it has to say, instead of going on YouTube and watching a video or listening to something to kind of distract from the pain. And that's been something I've struggled a lot with, but Yeah. Stillness.
It's very tough, but it's facing it, as you say, but yeah, it's not easy. And so many people look at it and they think, well, how can I slow down? I have so much to do, or I have so much to achieve. And how do you get to greatness if you slow down? And what they don't realize is that within slowing down, you actually speed up. You actually can achieve more, so much more when you create space, for the creativity and for messages to arrive, for your intuition and your heart to be able to have any room, to whisper through.
Totally. And it's like this shift from doing to being, which is pretty congruent with what we were talking about with a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. Is there, I think, are so many different paths to, quote unquote, getting what we want out of life or achieving something. And I've certainly been much more of a doer, and kind of using more will, which works. And when the times of my life where I've tapped into that frequency from a place of being, like being in that wholeness, being in that stillness and peace, and being in that vibration of that which I want, things just happen in a way that it makes no logical sense. And that's, I think, the grand mystery, and what these ancient teachers and sages have taught us and what we read in their books. And I don't know if you've read The Surrender Experiment,
No,
by Michael
but thank
Singer.
you.
It's incredible book. And he talks about how he built this huge, basically like a temple. I mean, he built $1 billion software company, but it was all through this act of surrender. And he would, align his being through meditation and these different, tools and practices, and things would just happen in a way that is like a cosmic puzzle being put together that he could have, that no man could consciously create. And I find the irony in what I've learned, and still is such a challenge for me, is it always happens when there's not the expectation. So kind of what I shared in the beginning, I think why that plant medicine journey I did this year was so hard is because I was coming at it from this energy of like need and expectation. But when I am able to let go, I can go after something but have genuinely no attachment, things show up. So I don't know how it works. I've experienced it, and it's pure magic every time.
Does.
But it's a truth of how the world works that I just have to go, like, every time it happens, and just awe.
Totally. We don't need to define it, right? And it's I've experienced it as well, and I agree. That's why I'm just sitting here smiling, because it's amazing, right? When we have that visualization, and then we it's not that it happens, poof out of nowhere. You're taking action towards it, but the right people will align. The right tools will be in front of you if you're opening your eyes and you're looking for them, and it'll all come together. And you can look back in a short period of time and be like, I have no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
But it's, you nailed it. It's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's blows me away every time. And when I hear about other people or read about them and their moments, it's just, to me, that truth is one of the most inspiring parts or elements of humanity. Just to being able to witness or experience that, it makes me feel, like, what is this? It's like a truth to how the world works in a way that is so beyond, conscious human understanding. And it's just fascinating.
Totally. It's an energy game. It really, really is. The more we look at it, right? It's the energy we're putting it out there. It's a vibration we're creating. And when we're operating in a low vibration, we attract low. We operate high, we attract high. And it's the same with opportunity. And it's the same with, I don't like going into the money space, but it can happen there too, right? It truly can. And I think in any component of our life, if we want something from a genuine place and there's good motive behind it, and again, you can't just sit with our eyes closed on that sweet meditation bench behind me and will it, and a new car is going to arrive in front of us. But there's tools in our toolbox to make those things happen if we do it a certain way.
Totally.
It's very powerful.
Well said.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. Well, I want to, I know we're getting to the top of the hour here, and I want to really respect your time, and I have really appreciated our chat, but I do always finish on two questions that I would love for you to answer. And because this is called the Conscious Creator Podcast, my one question, of course, is what would your personal definition be of a conscious creator, and how you can say how it relates to your life, if you like. So what would your personal definition be of a conscious creator?
That's a great question, one that I've never been asked. So thank you for the novelty. To me, a conscious creator is someone who, and I guess for me, is bringing intentionality with everything. So from the thoughts that I think to the things I want to do to the ideas, whether it be a podcast or a business idea or an event, creating it from that place of intention of like, what is my intention here? And I think creation can happen from many different energies, and one is not necessarily right or wrong. There can be vanity, and that's okay. But to have the intention to get to the truest part of me, which can't be measured by anyone, but it's a feeling, it's an embodiment that only I know. And to the closer that I can get to creating from that place, to me, that is the essence of being a conscious creator, to get to as close to truth as possible and operate from that place of inspiration.
Amazing answer. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was
Very
a
well
great question. I've never been asked that, and I like it.
Yeah, it just goes with the theme of, and how I like to get people to think on around that topic, because it's so important, right? And intention is that key word that I love hearing. It's so important. Before I start any podcast, there's two words I have written on my calendar and my page right here, and it's authenticity and intention. I don't care what people want to hear. I want to have a real conversation and let it flow, right? And I want to guide those with beautiful intention of, just having chats about the truth and what's real. And so I love it. That one word just hits me every time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nothing better than authentic intention, right?
Totally. The second one here, if you were to give your younger self at any age you can choose one piece of advice, of course, with the knowledge that you have today, what would that be?
That's a good question. And there's so many things I would want to say. I think where I'm at now is have the courage to say no and know that you are loved, even if other people are either offended or don't agree with you saying no, if it supports you. So be okay with being not unliked, and have the courage to honor your boundaries and say no.
That's important. Very, very important. Thank you. Another great answer.
It's good. You got some good questions, my friend.
It's just the powerful final two. Is there anywhere that we can give anything a shout out to, where people can kind of follow your journey? I know you're taking a bit of a break right now, but anything that you want to draw a bit of light or attention to?
Yeah. My name's Jake Heilbrunn, Heilbrunn. So that's my, Instagram and Facebook, where I just kind of got back on Instagram after about a 7-month hiatus, but it's how we got connected. I just like to express, as I shared before, it's catharsis for me to just express what I'm experiencing. So yeah, I would say Instagram or Facebook are good to just kind of follow the journey. And my website's jakeheilbrunn.com, where you can check out my TED Talk and my book and some of the other, content creations I've been a part of in the past.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, brother, for your time today. especially under the circumstances. I truly, truly appreciate it. And this conversation unfolded exactly as I had hoped and knew it would. So a true heartfelt, like, thank you for your time today. I feel like we got a great opportunity to connect. And if we were sitting together, I'd give you a big hug. And
Yeah.
I truly hope we can stay connected and have this chat again sometime.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the kind words and you facilitating this conversation. And yeah, I would love to stay in touch. Absolutely.
Thank you. My absolute pleasure. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, or you feel it added value to your day, please, please, please feel free to share it with friends. And of course, link and subscribe so that you can be alerted for future episodes. We sincerely appreciate you watching, and always remember to learn, laugh, and love. Until next time.